In life, we all encounter obstacles, and those obstacles come in all different shapes, sizes, and forms. The question is, how do we handle those obstacles? Do we attack them head on, or do we allow them to make us quit? Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up on themselves, their dreams, or their goals. We will interview successful people from all walks of life as they share their no-quit stories when they had the choice to give up or give in, but they didn't. We thank you for listening, and we hope to be that jolt of positivity as you go for your greatness. Welcome to episode number 150 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is abundance. Our quote of the day comes to us from Eckhart Tolle. Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is a foundation for all abundance. Today's episode is sponsored by the good people over at West Fair Communications, who publish the Westchester County Business Journal and the Fairfield County Business Journal. These newspapers do a wonderful job in covering all aspects of the business world within two of the most influential markets in the New York metropolitan area. You can also take advantage of their daily news feeds, which keep track on the companies and thought leaders in these important regions. For more information, take a look at www.westfaironline.com. Trust me, once you start reading, you won't quit. Today's show marks our 150th episode, and I'm so grateful for you, the listeners, as well as the amazing guests we have been extremely fortunate to have appear on our show. I hope our show continues to motivate and inspire listeners to never quit. I'm honored to welcome our guest today. Not only does she have an amazingly positive attitude, but her approach towards life and living in abundance is something we should all strive for. As a speaker, coach, author, mother, and podcast host, I don't know how Julie Reisler gets it all done. Today she shares not only her positive attitude with us, but some really neat advice to help us become the best versions of ourselves. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Julie, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm super stoked.
I appreciate you being here. So the first question I ask everybody is, are you ready to bring it today?
Oh my God. I am ready to bring it and then some.
All right, I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah, do it.
So the first question we ask everybody once we go live is, I'm curious if there was a time in your life where you have your own no-quit story, or perhaps a really challenging time that tested you and you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
You know, I think, God, I was thinking about this, and I have a lot of them. The one that I think would probably be the most pertinent is deciding to leave the corporate world, my corporate job, and making the switch to starting my own business. And it's just about 4 years ago. Would it be? Do you want me to share a little bit? I don't want to go on too long, but it's a good story.
Yeah, share a little bit of it, please.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. I had a great job with a huge Fortune 500 company and big restaurant chain, done very, very well. Was there 11 years. I had a great position. There was nothing wrong. I liked what I did a lot, but I did not feel lit up by it. And I ended up going back and getting my master's degree in health and wellness coaching and nutrition. And then I also started to stack on certifications in leadership and mindset and healthy eating and fitness. And soon I was working a full-time job, getting a master's, getting certifications. And it hit me one day, this, life is short in the sense it's meant to be loved and lived. In a way that I believe we're meant to thrive. And I realized that while I had a great cushy job, I wasn't thriving the way I knew I could. And so I decided to leave. And as 11 years, they luckily did not want me to leave, but it was for all good reasons. And I decided to take a part-time, it was a coaching position with a startup. And I had a sense, I'm big into intuition, and right away I had a sense there's something not right here. And so I did some part-time coaching with them getting their business up for the first 3 months. And they ended up not being able to pay me. I ended up leaving. This is like the first 3 months as I left. I mean, literally first time I've ever done this. I have 2 young kids. I was a single mom at the time. So this was not like an easy decision. It took me a long time to get there. And I got to tell you, I've had a couple other times in my business where things have happened, contracts have fallen through. I had to listen to my gut. It was the best decision. I got quiet and I realized, there were different directions to go in. And, I'm very, very grateful today. I have a thriving career or business that I'm in love with. I get to make a big difference for people and, travel the country and world doing that. And I'm obsessed with, personal development. I know you are too. So I get to literally, make a career out of my purpose. And I'm so grateful I did not quit. And I'm grateful I quit that role, but I'm grateful I did not quit the idea of going out on my own.
No, I think everyone's stories have so much to them, and I think there's so much backstory. So a follow-up question to that would be, is during that time, and I know it was challenging in many ways, and at the time being a single mother of two, what was it, or was there something that you were reading, or did you have a coach that you were speaking to, or were there programs or things, videos you were listening to or seeing? Because I'm always curious to add value to our listeners. And with that mindset, I was curious how you kept going during those turbulent times.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Here's what I would say, okay, and I'm a big believer in this. I think what did Harrison Ford say? It takes 20 years to become an overnight success. And it took, many, many years of working on myself, personal development. I did work with a coach. I did some personal development work through Landmark, which I'm not as involved with today, but was very helpful during a tumultuous time. I did a lot of support group work because I had a former food addiction. And so I had done a lot of self-study. And I'm a big believer in every morning having a routine. I do meditation. I often use the Miracle Morning to help me with that. And I just getting myself quiet. I am super focused on using my intuition and, getting still and asking questions of myself and then responding. I have a support system. So at the time, I'm not sure that I had a coach at the time, but I have a really incredible group of people that are just supporters that have got my best in mind. And so might push me, ask questions, support. They know my vision. They know my goals. I do the same for them. I call them, they're on my team. I'm on their team. So I ask for a lot of support from friends. And frankly, there's just this inner faith and knowing. I think there's something about when you really wake up in your life and you realize, for me, it happened this way. I really want to make a difference. And I'm just clear on how that is. And so there were times I'm like, I just believe everything happens for me, for the highest good. And so being focused on, all right, what's the lesson? What's the learning? What's the gift? These are questions I ask myself and I use when I coach people. It really helped me to do that. So I would look at, okay, what's the gift? And there were many, many gifts in that, many, and way more that came out of that period of discernment and then making a decision and deciding integrity is non-negotiable. So I don't know. I hope that helps. But I do think getting quiet, meditation, mindfulness, but certainly looking for what's the lesson, what's the learning, what's the gift. When you reframe, there's a whole different context.
Well, you touched on like 400 different things there. And one of the questions we ask is if you have a morning or a daily ritual. So you saved me from asking that, so I appreciate that. But one of the things you just touched on stood out is a concept that I often talk about, not only from stage, but with my individual and team coaching, is the concept of negotiables and non-negotiables. And I think it's something that I myself didn't really fully understand until probably this last January of 2018. I met a pretty impressive person that really got my mind thinking differently about that. So I wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind just briefly talking on negotiables versus non-negotiables.
Oh, yeah. It's great. It's funny. I always say, I've said in my life, integrity is non-negotiable. So when I had that realization that I was in a situation with people that were not in integrity, that's a non-negotiable for me. Honestly, I would say self-compassion and self-love are non-negotiables. I've been teaching and training myself how to do that. And what that looks like is getting enough rest, drinking enough water, 60 to 90 ounces. For me, it's energy, it's food, it's movement. So I try to move at least a little bit every day. I try to, eat in a way that's, for me, that's anything that's inflammatory. It's non-negotiable. So I don't, as a former sugar addict, I don't have sugar. I don't have gluten, soy, or dairy. And that just works for me. And meditation, it's just non-negotiable. Even if it's a minute, even if it's 30 seconds, there is always some moment of just pausing. Those are some of the basics there. I think, thankfully I don't know if it's partly this is how I am, and I've trained myself to look for the learning, the positivity, how am I growing? I do see this whole human thing as a classroom. Our whole experience is a classroom. So that's helped me. Non-negotiable would be my mindset. Allowing myself as the miracle morning. Sure, how Elrod, he talks about give yourself 5 minutes. So I try to do maybe 3 to 5 minutes if I really need to. If I'm upset, need to cry or get upset about something, I do it, and then I move on. So I think those are some of the non-negotiables for me.
No, I really appreciate you touching on that. And Hal was a guest on our show, so I'm very familiar with the Miracle Morning. I wanted to ask you, when you speak about meditation, is there an app or a program you use? I just started probably about 2-3 weeks ago using Headspace as an app, and I was curious if you have something to recommend or something that you're using that you'd like to pass on to our listeners.
Yeah, it's amazing you asked that. So this has been a real gift. So I'm a huge fan of the app Insight Timer. It's a free app. There are thousands of meditations, and I've actually had the real blessing and good fortune. I have about 10 meditations up there. There are many, many other teachers up there that have meditations, and they're phenomenal. And they're all different topics and times, and you could just do with beats or music, but it's a really phenomenal resource. And I actually just launched an audio course on there for people that also struggle with food addiction and eating issues. There's other courses up there too, but the majority of everything up there is free, and it has saved my butt. I've been using it for the last 8 years, and it's a really great community of people. You can see who else is meditating with you. So yeah, I am on there every single morning. If someone's meditating at the same time, you'll see me. I'll see you. You can wave. It's a beautiful app. It's probably my favorite app, and there's so many ways to use it. And it's helped people, meditating, you can do it in a lot of different ways. I've been trained in a lot of different methodologies. I really think what matters is that you sit still and give yourself time to breathe and release and come back to the moment. That's really it. So lots of ways to do that. But Insight Timer is my favorite.
And that's a free app, you said?
It's a free app. Yeah. In fact, it's the first time they have all these audio courses that are $5. That's it. It's ridiculous. But all the meditations are free. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So Insight Timer, and we'll put that in the show notes. So that's awesome, and I appreciate you sharing that. So I wanted to just ask you a question. As I mentioned before we went live, I don't like reading guest bios because I think it's kind of cheesy, but I wanted to ask you if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about who you are so our listeners can find out a little bit more about you.
Yeah. I think it's wise because, I know myself pretty well at this point. I hope so. I've done a lot of friggin' work on myself at this point. I know who I am. As I said earlier, I have a background. I did actually end up getting I did schooling, master's degree, certificate in coaching. I teach it at Georgetown University, and I coach a lot of different types of people, executives, entrepreneurs, people that I say anyone that's out to kind of change makers, people that want to really do awesome stuff with their lives. That's a good fit usually. But typically maybe feel stuck or just, have limited thinking or need support and help. And I also, by the way, usually have at least one coach that I'm working with. Right now I'm working with two different types of coaches. I don't just, I actually call myself a life designer, and I actually trademarked it. And I love that term because to me, it's about helping people, including myself, to design your best life by design, meaning you have that ability, control, and you can create it however you want. So, I also do a lot of teaching. I work with companies, government, military. I do a lot of courses on leadership and mindset, and I infuse mindfulness. And I've just been really lucky. I have a podcast that I started. It's after my branding is the You-est You. It's all about, my aim is to help people become their most badass self, not get stuck in comparative thinking or, competing, but really to be, your You-est You. And I would say the other piece to what I do is I do a lot of speaking. I got to do some TEDx talks last year, and it's all about, similar ideology of really getting that we choose every thought, every action, and it all leads to reality. And so we get to choose our reality. And how do you do that? And I think that the last piece is, I've written, my next book is coming up, but I wrote a book called Get a PhD in You. And my obsession is just the fact that, I don't know, I think about this often. I would hate to wake up, way down the road at the end of my life and think I missed it. That like haunts me. And I think all the time, like, I want to look back and know I literally gave it all. I gave it all and then some, and that I really made a difference for people and maybe even uplifted, empowered others to see who they really are. And I also believe on a bigger scale that, I've seen it in my own life. I've had a lot of transformations. We don't have enough time to talk about it, but most areas of my life I have redone, and including marriages and health and all of it. So I just know the power when you really get, positive mindset and understanding that we are the creators of our reality. And that is certainly my passion. I think about it every day. And I think since I've had such amazing switches in my life, I love watching that with other people, kind of have that light go on and see them, see anyone who's listening do amazing things and feel good in who you are, and then share that. I think the world would be a whole different place, and can be, as we do that.
That when I asked a simple question of who you are, you only spoke about 4 minutes. So I think you need to do more. You're not doing enough things. If you, it's interesting. I think that you mentioned that you're writing your second book, so definitely we'll put that in the show notes, and we'll give you an opportunity at the end to share a little bit about which ways our listeners can follow you. I'm currently writing my own book, which is exciting and challenging in itself. But I think the reason why I enjoy the coaching world, whether it's with individuals I work with or teams and corporations, is you get to ask a lot of those questions and help people get to that place down the road. And I think it's very interesting when you ask questions in a different way, or you ask them in a repetitive way, to really get your clients to ask themselves, and then to really ascertain, is this where they need to be, where they should be, and where they want to be. It goes back to your original point of when you were talking about when you had your successful 11 plus year career, you liked what you were doing, but you weren't in love. And I assume, like most people, you probably weren't going into work every day really excited to really attack it. So I wanted to ask you, with that kind of in the moment, is how do you personally define success, or what does success personally mean to you?
Yeah, I think about this question, Christopher, all the time. I think about it all the time. I think this is obviously a very personal answer. It's going to resonate for some and maybe not for everybody. For me, success is when I am able to be fully self-expressed, i.e. really in the flow of my purpose, helping other people, making an impact. That shows up in a lot of ways. And then marrying that with getting paid for that, making a living, a career, a business, a livelihood around helping people to understand and to see and to live out who they are. So for me, to do what I'm in love with, to feel lost in that moment of being of service and adding value, I think freedom is a huge piece. Just that freedom to do that, being freely self-expressed. For me, I value freedom a lot, like feeling free, being able to do these things, and that I can answer a calling that folks have to have to improve their life. So it is definitely not just a dollar sign at all. I think it's easy to get wrapped up in success is when I hit this and when I hit that. And I'll tell you, I'm grateful. My business has done well and it's expanding, and I could get into that space. But I really, when I peel it back, it's when I'm in that flow of really doing what I am meant to do and feeling like I kind of disappear myself. I love that feeling when I almost feel like the me that I normally feel is actually not fully there because I can be so of service to somebody else. That's kind of how I define it.
No, it's a great definition. And what I love about that question is there is no right or wrong answer, but not probably ironically to you in any way, the most common word that is brought up is the word freedom. And I think that's really neat, because what I'm realizing is, as I'm in now 150 episodes into our show, is that question allows somebody to be very original, very creative, but also a little bit vulnerable, because you say what it is. And if you yourself said money first and foremost, there's nothing wrong with that. If I said donation, charity, and I think it goes back to what we said before, is in life, whether you're working for a company or for yourself or donating your time and efforts, is when you get up every day, do you have that freedom to do that? And I think a lot of people ultimately realize that money will give you options. It doesn't always make you happy, but if you're doing what you want to do and it allows you the freedom to do other things, I think that's just really remarkable in many ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I think also looking at abundance and success, abundance comes in many, many, many forms. And so for me, part of that is being abundant, with possibilities around people, connecting with people like you. Of course, financially, prosperity, but for me, that abundance piece is in there too. And I think huge piece is seeing that there's abundance in many different forms.
No, I love that word, and I think it was only probably halfway through this year in 2018 when I really understood what abundance means. And as you said, there's so many different meanings. It could be financially, it could be family, it could be career-wise. There's just so many different things, and I think abundance leads to that word we used before, which is freedom. Is if you have enough, let's say, abundance in your financial world, you have the opportunity to donate your time and money. If you have enough abundance in your relationships, you have the opportunity to have more relationships and develop more. So I think that's a really, really cool word. Wanted to ask you, one of the things we always like to do is add value, and I was curious if you've read anything recently, or perhaps you're reading something that you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
Oh gosh, I'm reading all the time, and I kind of go between books around entrepreneurship and business and goals, and I also then float between more spiritually depth books. Those might be a little out there, so I'm thinking what might be more applicable. I read Expert by Russell Brunson. Expert. I'm just thinking right now. What is it called? Oh my God, Expert Wisdom. I have to.
Yep, I know. Yep.
This is so funny. I'll get it before we're done. Oh my gosh. Hello. Expert. It'll come. I thought that was excellent. Niche Down by Christopher Lochhead. Awesome. Hal's recent book with David Osborne, the millionaire, Miracle Morning for Millionaires, is an awesome book around mindset. Trying to think of Expert Secrets. I think it's Expert Secrets.
Yep. That's his most recent book. That's awesome.
Expert Secrets is phenomenal. And oh my gosh, I've had so many. The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, old school one. I just had never read it. Very good. Also similar to kind of Napoleon Hill, old school Think and Grow Rich. So those are some of the ones. But Niche Down, I definitely recommend by Christopher Lochhead, and Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson.
No, I always love that question, because people commonly are reading similar books, but there's also an opportunity where we can share something that people haven't heard. So hopefully some of our listeners know of some of those books, and hopefully they don't, so give them something else to look at. So wanted to change lanes for a minute to one of our favorite questions. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
It's crazy. I don't know why this happened, but a day ago somebody asked me this. We were just asking random questions. Honestly, I am most amazed with and by Oprah. I think her story of where she started, everything from being an African-American female growing up in the South to who she is and how she has stepped into her power and what she's shared with the world is extraordinary. I resonate with a lot of her passion and just how she's done that. And she is somebody, it's funny, I was just listening to a interview she did with Lynn Twist. By the way, an excellent book is The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. An excellent book. It's a hybrid between spiritual and business. Anyhow, she was interviewing her, and I just thought, you know what? I don't know when and how, but I got to interview her, or I've got to sit and have a conversation with her. I want to talk to her about her life journey. I just think she demonstrates that anything is possible.
She's quite an impressive woman. So if you do get an opportunity for dinner or lunch, I'm gonna have to say that I have to either hijack or just sit at the table next to you and just listen. But she has actually one of my favorite quotes about failure. It's failure is another stepping stone to greatness. So in dealing with quotes, I was curious. Do you have a favorite quote yourself?
Oh, goodness. If you could see my home, I have 12 quotes that I hand painted all over my house. So I have one on my front door, and the front door quote is the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams by Eleanor Roosevelt. That's one of my favorites. The other one is the universe pays you back for taking risks on its behalf.
Well, No, I'm a huge quote person. I have them written down. I have them typed up all over the place, and it's just something that we ask on almost every show. So, to keep with time, I wanted to ask you before we let you go, what does the word accountability mean to you?
Accountability, it's interesting. What came to me first was the idea of intrinsic motivation. Look, accountability. We talk about having people help us be accountable. I see it as an inside job. Now, I believe in support, and I have it. But most important, it's being in alignment. It's being in alignment with my best health, my best mental health, my best emotional health. It's being connected, and I guess I see it as something that is my first and foremost primary job, is to be accountable with myself, to myself, for anything I say I'm going to do, for anything I want to create, for living a healthy life, for anything I want to put out there. I see that as once I say that, like, I'm accountable to myself first and foremost. And I think it's important, for me at least, to have that real solid relationship with myself, and then of course have support around it. So I don't know if that defines it. That's just how I look at it.
No, it's another question that's almost identical to the success question, because there is no right or wrong answer. And one of the things we often talk about is how you need to be accountable to yourself. And if you have somebody that's more accountable to you than you're accountable to yourself, then you'll have some challenges. So as we wrap up, one of the things we like to ask each of our guests is if you have some parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners.
My parting words are typically around the same area, and it's really around this. I believe every person listening, we each came with, incredible gifts and skills and desires that are there for a reason. We all have different concoction recipe of that, and I believe we're meant to thrive, and we're meant to live those out and have those desires fulfilled and make an impact, and live thriving lives. And for me, the best way to do that is to be, to make sure that every day I'm in connection with that best side of me, with those goals, with my aims, and to trust that, and to have faith in that aspect of who I am. And so, really trusting your intuition, those desires, those goals, and then don't miss the moment. Do it, go for it, get support. Do not quit. If you have that strong desire, there's a reason, and you can assume that there's a reason you're here, and there's a reason you have it, and there's others that are looking for what you have. And I've seen this time and time again, and it has never failed. So just really getting we all to believe in ourselves, and we all have something to add that's important. We're all needed.
No, that's some great parting advice. And then the last question, and I promise it's the easiest one. What's the best way for our listeners to either connect with you, follow you, or find out more about your book and some other programs and things you're doing?
Yeah. So it's pretty easy. Everything is at my name. I'll spell it really fast. It's Julie Reisler. That's REI, like the store, SLER. So juliereisler.com is my website. I have my new book, which is Get a PhD in You, business edition, that will be coming out in October. And then Instagram, LinkedIn, all of it is Julie Reisler. If you look at my name, I kept it pretty simple. I'm easy to find.
As awesome. Well, Julie, I cannot thank you enough for sharing what you did. I love some of the stuff you shared, and hopefully our listeners will not only follow you on those different social media sites, but also check out some of your books and programs when they come out. And thank you so much for being a guest on our show today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I hope this was really impactful and of service to anybody listening. And I just thank you for what you're putting into the world. It's awesome. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to episode number 150. As abundance is our theme of the day, Julie definitely brought it. Early on in her 11-year career at a Fortune 500 company, she realized that she was not truly happy with her job. She was content, but not truly happy. She decided to take action and take a chance, but it wasn't easy. Julie's definition about success was awesome, as she spoke about helping other people and making an impact on them. She shared how meditation has helped her each and every day, and how finding her own quiet time is extremely important to her. One thing she mentioned was how she would hate to wake up down the road and think, I missed it. Julie spoke about the concept of negotiables and non-negotiables, and then she shared some of her non-negotiables with us. So in closing for today's episode, as you look at your own life, career, and relationships, where do you stand with your own negotiables, and where do you stand with your non-negotiables? If you haven't taken a close look, I suggest that you do. It's a very simple exercise. Just take out a piece of paper and a pen and create a list with 2 columns. One, the things that you are willing to negotiate with, and then create a second column with those items that are not open for negotiation. I challenge you to take an open and honest look at those 2 columns. Candidly and honestly review them, and then decide to take specific action as you go for your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.